Hi, I'm Marvin Sprouse. The name of this program is Elusive Sobriety. I'm a former drunk. The more formal of you will call that a recovering alcoholic, but I felt like a drunk when I was drinking, I'll tell you that. And it's been 25 years since I had a drink. And I want to tell you something, I still want one every once in a while, and I still go through the lies I'm going to cover with you about why I should go ahead and have a drink. I'm only going to talk to you for about 6 minutes. I want to tell you first of all my story. I was an Army officer. I had PTSD. That's a fancy way of saying I was a nutcase. I'm a Vietnam vet. I had 2 tours in Nam, and I drank a lot in Nam, and after Nam, I drank an awful lot. When I was in Europe, I was an Army captain, and I went out and managed to get arrested by the German equivalent of the Highway Patrol. And they charged me with a DWI. Now, if an officer in Europe gets arrested for a DWI, they send him home. They send him home for disciplinary reasons. And your career as an officer is basically over at that time. Well, it was Thanksgiving Day, and I got a phone call from a major, and he says, Marvin, you've got a good military record, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to lose this report. And I said, oh, thank you. And guess what I did? I went and celebrated. I went and celebrated by getting a bottle of wine out of the refrigerator and getting snookered. That's what I did. That's what we do, we drunks. And I want to tell you, it was really easy to be a drunk in Germany because they had all kinds of beers and wine and schnapps, which is a potato whiskey, which is a little stronger than tequila. It's really rough stuff, but I didn't know it was rough stuff. It tasted pretty good to me at the time because I was at that time a drunk. Well, I kept drinking until my life was really in a shambles. I got out of the Army, and I managed to get a job, but I lost it. And I totaled my car, I got a divorce, I lost a lot of friends, and I did some embarrassing things like get out of my car and start a fight in traffic in front of my children. And I'm not proud of those things, I'm ashamed of those things, but that's the drunk I was in those days. And then after the divorce, I met this woman named Charlene Higgins. Her name wasn't Sprouse when I met her, but I saw her and I said, I'm going to marry that girl. And I went over, and pretty soon I asked her, will you marry me? I won't tell you what she said. I will if you quit drinking. And my response was, I just did. And what that demonstrated for me is what I'm going to tell you about in just a minute. The reward was greater than the reward I was getting for drinking. I said, man, I want to be with that beautiful woman, and if she wants me to quit drinking, I just did. So it's been 25 years since I had a drink, and as I said, there are nights when I sit down and say, you know, I could go and get myself a shot of bourbon and it wouldn't hurt a soul. Yeah, it would, because when you start drinking again, no matter if it's been 2 days or 25 years, you're as much of a drunk as you were when you stopped. And I call myself a drunk instead of an alcoholic because it just reminds me of how silly it was, the things I was doing. That major who pulled that report for me, he didn't do me a favor. I could have done without the divorce and getting fired and getting in those fights in the street and all the things that I did as a drunk. So if he had stopped right then and there and said, okay, take the consequences, and I had taken the consequences, maybe I would have stopped drinking 15 years earlier. That would have been a great thing. Well, alcohol is a condition where alcohol controls a significant part of your life. And you beat alcoholism by beating the alcohol, by saying, I quit. And here I have to explain the difference between simple and easy. It's simple to say, I'm going to quit, and you quit. That's simple. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to understand that. but it's not easy. If it were easy, there wouldn't be a multi-million-dollar program in America to help people stop being addicted to alcohol and other weird drugs. And alcohol is a weird drug. And let me tell you something. One of the big lies is, well, it's just beer. Baloney. I've met more beer alcoholics than anything else. And you can be an alcoholic drinking just beer. And you can get drunk on just beer. And if you're just drinking 3 or 4 a night, that's too much. You ought to know that, and you'll know it soon enough, because it's going to cost you. It always costs. If it doesn't kill you soon and you die young with a big fat belly, maybe you won't get it. Maybe you'll die before you get it, before you understand that alcoholism is not something you want in your life. Well, there are 2 lies that keep us drinking, and the 2 lies are, well, this one doesn't count. What do you mean it doesn't count? They all count. Everything you do counts, and you're going to be responsible for everything you do one of these days. And the second lie is, well, just one won't hurt. That's the biggest lie of all. One will hurt, and I haven't met an alcoholic yet who could ever really drink just one. Now, you can quit drinking without AA, without going through any program or any training or any preparation, and it won't really be kind to you. I want to tell you, when you quit drinking without AA, you go on what is called a dry drunk. And for 15 years after I quit drinking, I was an obnoxious person. I was not a nice guy, because I had a temper. I still had a temper. And I'd go off the handle over the most ridiculous things. And I was insane. I was essentially insane. So when you go on a program such as Alcoholics Anonymous, and I love that program, then you learn how to deal with yourself and with others by talking to others who have been there and done that. You know, in 25 years I've learned a few things about being an alcoholic. And the 25 years that taught me that were the 25 years that I was not drinking. I got to tell you something. When I went to my first AA meeting, I circled the block about 4 times. I was afraid to go in there. And I went in and I sat down, and I'm going to tell you something. I sat there for 6 months going to meetings, 2 or 3 meetings a week. And I would sit there and I would listen, and I think I was learning things, but it took me 6 whole months to be able to say, I'm Marvin and I'm an alcoholic. And that should be easy, but it's not. If you're an alcoholic, one of the hardest things to do is to admit you're an alcoholic. And one of the things we say in AA is, denial is not a river in Egypt. Denial is lying to yourself. And if you want to lie to yourself, just keep doing it. Listen, folks, at the height of my drinking career, I had a sheriff come into my place of business, read me my rights, and put me in handcuffs and take me to jail. I was so ashamed of that, and now I'm proud of it. But I'm not proud of being arrested, but I'm proud I got through it. And I'm proud of my God for getting me through it and for giving me the strength. My higher power is always there for me, and I met him at an AA meeting. And people talk about religiously attending AA, and I want to tell you, I've heard some Christian preachers get up and criticize AA because Bill Wilson had some dealings with the occult and with things that weren't Christian. Come on, give me a break, folks. If you're not drinking, you're ahead of the game. And if you go and you meet God, and Bill Wilson in the big book, he wrote, we need to deal with our higher power, God, as we understand him. That's where you start. And I want to tell you, I started there, and today I am a real deal Baptist preacher. Yeah, I believe that Jesus of Nazareth is God. I believe that He came and died for my sins, and that's who I believe in. That's my higher power. And I've seen people who had a higher power of a mountain. They'd say the mountain's my higher power because that's all they could believe at the time. You see, working your program through AA is a process, and you develop and you grow through that process. And it's the sponsorship, and it's the meetings, and it's living not one day at a time, 1 minute at a time, because you can be tempted this afternoon to go out and have just one drink. That wouldn't hurt anything, right? Wrong. And through AA, through sponsorship, through meetings, through your relationship with God, with your higher power, you will learn how to deal with yourself and your addiction to alcohol. I'm Marvin Sprouse. I thank you for listening.